Hey, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about history, but probably not the way you're used to thinking about it. We're going to move way beyond that simple straight line of events and dive into a much richer, more connected way to really understand the past. So, let me ask you something. When you think history, does your brain just automatically start picturing a long list of dates, famous names, and big battles you had to memorize for a test? For a lot of us, that's exactly how we learned it. But honestly, that barely scratches the surface of what history's really all about.
Okay, so take a look at this. This slide really lays out the two different ways of seeing the past we're talking about. Over on the left, you've got that classic timeline-only view. It's flat, a straight line. It sees events as these isolated little islands and mostly just asks, when did this happen? But on the right, that's where things get interesting. The holistic view sees history as a rich, three-dimensional world, a web of interconnected systems. And it pushes us to ask much deeper questions, like why did this happen, and how did it all go down?
So, how do we actually get to that 3D view? How do we make that jump? Well, the answer is something called the interdisciplinary approach. It's a really powerful way of thinking that helps you connect all the dots and finally see that bigger picture.
So what does that actually mean? Well, at its core, it's about being able to take a moment in history and look at it not just by itself, but through the lens of other fields of study. It's all about seeing how everything is tangled together.
And this quote it gets right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? The big takeaway here is that nothing in history ever happens in a vacuum. Every single major event, every shift, every change is pulled and pushed by this whole network of other forces. And if you want to get what's really going on, you have to understand those forces.
Okay, so let's get practical. How do we actually do this? How do we start making these connections? Well, it all starts by looking at history through three very specific, very powerful lenses.
These are our three main tools. Think of them like a toolkit for understanding the past. First, you've got geography. You have to ask, what was the actual land like? Where were the rivers, the mountains? What resources were hiding in the ground? Second, you bring in economics. Who had the money? How are things being made and sold? And third, you look at government. What were the rules, who was in charge, and how are they using their power?
And here's just a brilliant way to remember it. Geography sets the stage where the whole drama unfolds. Economics is the plot. It's what drives the action forward. And government, well, that's the set of rules all the actors have to follow. So let's make this real. Think about that huge shift in America from a rural farming nation to an industrial powerhouse. The stage, geography, was everything. New industrial cities didn't just pop up anywhere. They exploded near resources like coal fields and waterways that could power the factories. The plot, economics, was driven by inventions like the railroad, which didn't just move goods, it created whole new industries and pulled millions of people from farms to cities looking for work. And the rules, government, were things like land grants that encouraged companies to lay down thousands of miles of track, fundamentally reshaping the country. See? It's not just a date on a timeline. It's this dynamic story of how land, money, and power all collided.
So, okay, this is a cool way to think, for sure. But why does it really matter? What's the big payoff here? Turns out, shifting to this way of thinking has some seriously practical benefits for anyone trying to learn or teach history.
First, it lets you build a much more integrated curriculum, where history suddenly clicks with geography, with civics, with economics. And when you start doing that, it automatically strengthens your critical thinking, because you're not just memorizing facts, you're analyzing these complex cause and effect relationships. And that all leads to the final and maybe the most important payoff: it makes history feel relevant.
And really, that's the whole ballgame. When we can finally see the big picture, see how the land and the money and the laws all smash together to create a specific moment in time, history stops being this dusty old collection of abstract facts. It becomes grounded. It feels real, and suddenly it feels incredibly relevant to understanding the world we're all living in right now.
All right, so now that we've got the framework, it's time to put it all together. This is the fun part. This is where you get to put on the historian's hat and start using these lenses for yourself.
Seriously, think about it. Pick any ancient city. Instead of just saying, oh, it was founded in this year, how would you really explain why it succeeded? Was it built on a major river that made trade super easy? Boom, that's geography. Did its people figure out a unique way to make pottery that everyone wanted to buy? That's economics. Did it have a stable system of laws that made people feel safe and want to live there? That's government. That is how you start to see history in 3D. So, what story will you uncover?